how much this place protects and cares for all its citizens.
Bullshit! This is bullshit!
The man was extremely angry, believing that all the talk about caring for citizens was nothing but deceit. He was once a well-compensated soldier, but due to a minor mistake, he lost everything and ended up at the bottom here. Despite wanting to speak with the leaders, he was always shut out. In a fit of anger, he took this extreme action. The man, named Tyler, was now agitated, viewing everyone here as a bunch of hypocrites. He even destroyed the portrait as he voiced his frustrations.
Please put down the knife. And let my assistant go.
As Tyler listened to Pamela's words, he gradually calmed down, realizing the magnitude of the trouble he had caused. The Commonwealth would undoubtedly not let him go, but thankfully, Tyler, inherently not malicious, left the girl behind and departed. Daryl immediately followed him outside. Despite Sebastian publicly scolding Michael, he had to swallow his anger.
Get him.
Daryl chased after him until he was outside the hall. He looked around and saw that Tyler was entering the haunted house. He quickly followed him. Once inside, Daryl carefully searched the room, not sure if Tyler was aggressive or not. As he walked, he heard movement just behind the curtains. Tyler was a little devastated. He knew there was no way he was going to get out of there.
Sir, that means you got family. A lot of us don't get to have that anymore. Don't take that away from her.
Tyler nodded his head. The words reminded him of his sister. Family members are what keep each other alive. Tyler broke down and put the dagger down in his hand and handed it to Daryl. He had to take the blame for what he had done or his family would only have a harder time. Daryl didn't want to do it, but the Commonwealth had its own rules and he was just a candidate for the army. As they reached the exit, Sebastian appeared at the door, smiling at Daryl, praising him for finally doing something right.
Nah, you got him. Go ahead. Take him to your mom.
Life was such. Even the upright Daryl got involved in social intricacies. Both he and Tyler were doing it for their families. Judith and RJ were waiting for him to become official and have a better life. Soon they were back in the lobby and Sebastian made a point of messing up his hair before he pushed Tyler through the crowd. Immediately there was thunderous applause. Pamela was a little surprised that Tyler was caught by her own son. Michael glanced at Daryl, guessing what had happened.
Remove him.
You think getting rid of me solves anything? There are thousands more like me. Resist the Commonwealth! Visibility for workers! Equality for all!
Pamela was disturbed by this statement. Could there really be thousands of other rebels? Lance decisively stated it was impossible. On the third day, Daryl donned armor as a result of ingratiating himself with Sebastian, and both he and Rosita were officially accepted. They not only moved into a new apartment but also received their first substantial salaries. With his newfound earnings, Daryl immediately bought a music player for Judith, allowing her to listen to the records her friends had gifted her. However, Tyler's situation was far from over. They were ordered to search civilian homes diligently, aiming to uncover those engaging in covert activities. While inspecting a wardrobe, Rosita discovered a hidden space. Pushing open the door, she found various graffiti on the walls, expressing ideals like equality for all. This seemed to be a clandestine gathering place for those who questioned the current state of the Commonwealth. Rosita, having experienced much, could easily discern the underlying issues within the Commonwealth. But like the real world, we all end up living like we hate it. In the newspaper office, the editor-in-chief had already drafted an initial newspaper article, claiming that Tyler suffered from severe mental illness, but Connie vehemently opposed this. As Tyler was evidently coerced into his drastic actions, there must be an ulterior motive in this matter. Connie believed in reporting the truth objectively and suggested confronting Tyler and Pamela publicly. However, the editor-in-chief wasn't willing to agree. The post-apocalyptic society, it seemed, was equally dark. Connie didn't give up. As a journalist, she felt a responsibility to let the public know the truth. They headed to the hospital and directly approached the room where Tyler was held, but they were halted by soldiers. Connie inquired if Tyler had a lawyer and what accusations he faced. While they conversed, Michael, opening a door slightly, shot them a stern look, seemingly warning them to leave promptly. They had no choice but to abandon their mission. Yet, they didn't give up. In the afternoon, the soldiers are out on a mission and Connie and Kelly follow them, hoping to learn some truth from Michael. Initially, Michael was unwilling to engage with them, but the persistent women followed him even during zombie encounters. Eventually, he reluctantly agreed to answer a few questions. Connie first asked about the charges against Tyler and the hidden secrets. Then, she questioned why the military had to follow the orders of politicians. Michael didn't anticipate these questions from Connie and chose not to answer, suggesting that even if they knew the truth, revealing it wouldn't change anything as no one would let them go public. They fell into silence, realizing the complexity of the situation. After a while, Michael returned to the hospital. However, when he opened the door, the room had been cleaned out, and Tyler's fate seemed grim. Michael, inherently upright, had seen too much of such situations. The so-called equality was just a facade. Power and law ultimately rested in the hands of the aristocracy. Ironically, for the sake of family, he had to play the role of their servant. That night, Connie and Kelly rested in their room, understanding the complexities involved. However, their sense of justice wouldn't allow them to give up. Suddenly, a knock on the door interrupted their contemplation. Connie approached the door, and a note was slipped through. By the time she opened the door, the person outside was already gone. Upon examining the note, they found it to be a list, and the last name on it was Tyler's. They were left pondering the significance of this unexpected development. Eugene woke up with a slight smile on his face, as he had spent the night at Stephanie's place. Although Eugene and Stephanie hadn't officially started dating, it was evident that they had taken a successful step forward. Stephanie was currently engrossed in something. Eugene noticed it was his own unfinished novel. Feeling a bit awkward, as he had used their radio communication as inspiration for the story, Eugene had often discussed plot lines with Stephanie. While Eugene was worried, Stephanie read it and said she liked it and was proud of his talent. Stephanie then changed into her clothes, preparing to head out for work. As Eugene sat on the bed, he contemplated taking their relationship to the next level. Gathering courage, he confessed his feelings and even handed Stephanie the keys to his apartment, expressing his desire to see her every day. Eugene received a positive response, lifting his spirits, and his long-awaited love story had finally begun. They both went about their respective tasks. However, Eugene arranged to meet Stephanie at 5 o'clock in the afternoon for ice cream, their first official date. Exiting the apartment, Eugene couldn't contain his excitement, even questioning if this was real. In his elation, Eugene sought advice from Princess, wanting to confirm whether such actions from a girl meant acceptance. Princess told him that it's okay, if a girl says she loves you, then you should believe her, and pursue your love boldly. An inspired Eugene was thrilled. Princess was right, he needed to embrace love openly. In preparation for their first date, he arrived at the square half an hour early, holding the ice cream they had once discussed on the radio. His face was full of happiness, his eyes were looking away from time to time, and his mind was imagining what he would talk about later. He began to giggle at the thought. It was the first time he had ever fallen in love. However, as 2 hours passed, the sky darkened, and Stephanie was nowhere to be seen. Eugene's first date ended in disappointment, leaving him with an indescribable sense of desolation. Later that evening, at 9 p.m., Eugene visited Stephanie's apartment, hoping to get some clarification. He rang the doorbell multiple times, but there was no response. Looking up, he noticed the lights were still on inside. Confused, he encountered a man walking out. Seizing the opportunity, Eugene slipped inside. He went to the door and knocked, but there was no answer no matter how much he shouted. Unbeknownst to him, the living room was pitch black, and no one was inside. The only lit room was the bedroom at the back. Stephanie was hurriedly packing her clothes into a suitcase, seemingly in a rush to leave. The next day Eugene enlisted the help of his good friend Rosita to let them go in as soldiers to see if something had happened to Stephanie. Rosita knocked on the door, but there was no response. Using the key, they entered the apartment and, after 5 minutes of searching, informed Eugene that there was no one inside. Eugene panicked. Was Stephanie avoiding him on purpose, or was there something going on? Rosita, unsure how to comfort Eugene, advised him to wait for 24 hours. If Stephanie was still missing, they should report it to the police. With tears in his eyes, Eugene felt as though he had grasped love only to have it slip away. 5 days later, Eugene opens the door to his room in despair, and the visitor is the princess. Princess, concerned about Eugene, came to check on him. After entering the house, Princess looked at the things on the wall and was shocked. This guy does not go to work and the intelligence work is really a waste of talent. Eugene did not hide anything and shared the events of the past few days. Stephanie had been missing for 24 hours before soldiers began searching the city. But even after 2 days of searching, there were no leads. Eugene, unwilling to accept defeat, printed missing person flyers, but they seemed to have no effect. Frustrated and heartbroken, he turned to alcohol, drowning his sorrows. One night, While Eugene was relieving himself, a man walked past him. It was the same man from the night Stephanie disappeared. Eugene, clinging to a glimmer of hope, chased after the man, hoping to get information about Stephanie's whereabouts. The man claimed to be a plumber, stating that he was merely repairing pipes that night. He quickly left, showing reluctance to engage in further conversation, but Eugene's instincts told him there was something wrong with this man. There were no city service vehicles in the neighborhood that night, and the man wasn't wearing any identifying uniform. Following the man, Eugene discovered that his name was Roman and that he wasn't a plumber at all. Their base is a warehouse where no goods are ever transported. But every day there are people meeting there, and the lights inside the warehouse are always on. After observing the same 4 people going back and forth every day, until a 5th person appeared, Eugene analyzed that this person should be their leader. Further investigation indicated that this group was involved in underground activities, possibly linked to government insiders. Eugene suspected that Stephanie might have clashed with them, leading to her unexplained disappearance. On the 4th day of Stephanie's disappearance, all her belongings were gone. The person overseeing the move-out process was one of the individuals at the warehouse. The paperwork for the move was legitimate, indicating the involvement of a high-ranking government official.